Welcome back to React Native Radio Podcast. Brought to you by Real Life, written by the makers of Idiocracy, South Park, and Mad Magazine. Episode 360, TanStack Native Router with Tanner Linsley.
So, Robin, happy Easter. Welcome back, or belated Easter. Did you have any fun kid Easter egg hunts?
Oh, we did. We definitely did Easter stuff. My family does, well, okay. My husband's family, their tradition was Easter basket scavenger hunts. Like treasure hunts, like with clues.
Okay.
So like Easter Bunny would leave like a starting clue by their room, like in the morning. And so then they would like follow the clues throughout the house. And they were like riddle style, and eventually would lead to their Easter basket, right? And this like tradition kept going like well into their 20s. Like they were, his dad was still doing these scavenger hunts for them. Like when I met Travis when we were 22, and like continued basically until we had kids. And then he was like, okay, you're the dad now. Like you have to do it now.
Your turn.
But they would just get like progressively more diabolical every year. Like the clues would be like super obscure, and it would take like several hours to get through it. But so now we do that for our kids. And obviously they're still really easy because my kids are 7 and 4. But like my oldest can read now. And so she gets like actual like word clues. And it was super fun watching them like run all around the house being like, oh, I know where that is.
Physical and mental. I like that. Instead of just like running around and messing up the yard looking for stuff.
We did that too, but at my in-laws' house. I did not have to hide any eggs at my house.
Yeah, we had one that we always do with our close friends and neighbors where her mom just basically puts a bunch out in the backyard, and there's a golden egg for every kid and just toys in a basket after the party's over. And she just lets loose like, I think like 10 kids in the backyard for all this stuff. So it's fun. We do that every year. And this year we're actually just walking around the neighborhood, and there was actually an Easter egg hunt at an open house. So it was like, okay, go find the Easter eggs while we check out this house we're not house shopping for, whatever reason. Because that's what you do.
It's supposed to you do it as an adult. It's like, you just like look on Zillow and see what the houses that you can't afford that you like.
I called my mother-in-law. I was like, hey, do you want a house down here? There's one on the market right now around the corner. And your son-in-law is having a great time in the front and backyard, so it might work out. I'm going to bring in our guest, who we'll introduce a little bit later. But Tanner, do you all have a family tradition that you all do for Easter?
Yeah, seems like we have several we kind of rotate in and out of. But, growing up, my mom would hide Easter eggs all over the living room and hide Easter baskets and stuff. Obviously going to church is a part of that as well. So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormon. If anybody doesn't know the real name of the church, that's fine. So I mean, going to church every Easter is like, well, yeah, duh. But other than that, we did have some fun traditions. So in my teenage years, we would go actually to Moab, Utah. They have something called the Easter Jeep Safari. My brothers and I were kind of like very good friends with this family that would always go. So they invited us to go a couple of years, and pretty soon it became our tradition too. So we would go down, we would take our Jeeps, and we would off-road the slick rock trails in Moab with all of these other insane off-road jeeping people. I mean, like, we were tame, very tame compared to this crowd. It was so much fun though. We did that for a long time, but now, I mean, I'm married. I've got 3 kids, one on the way. Easter is very different these days.
Yes.
This year, let's see, we went on kind of like a little staycation over last weekend. And when we got back, we were just so tired. We had already done Easter egg hunts and stuff beforehand. On Sunday itself, we were just like, hey, kids, like, we have some treats. We're not going to do anything crazy. And we actually chose to like try it. I mean, my kids are 8, 5, 2 right now. We chose to like say, hey, you know, we're going to make today like about Christ and about Easter, like for really what it is. And we were expecting this like, what? No, like, and they were like, okay, cool.
Aww.
Like that sounds
That
great.
worked out.
And there's also every once in a while the general conference for our church. So it's like broadcast all over the world, and instead of going to church that day, everybody just watches general conference, right? That landed on Easter this year, so we just got to
That's cool.
yeah, so it was like we all just kind of hung around, watched general conference, and like we do Legos and like quiet activities and stuff while we listen, and it's really fun. It was actually like one of the less crazy Easters, but probably one of the best that we've had.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let's kind of get into things because I want to get you to introduce
People are
yourself.
probably like, React Native. Did I click on the React Native podcast?
Yeah. You are in the right place.
I love it when we just like get going on something else. But yes, we are here for React
There's going to be
Native.
plenty of that. So.
Yes, there will be.
Well, I'm Mazen, staff software engineer at Infinite Red, and your host for today. I'm joined by Robin, our director of engineering here at Infinite Red,
Hello.
who's would be my co-host, and our guest, Tanner Linsley. Did I say that right, Tanner?
Yeah, you got it.
Gold star.
Some people will
Welcome
say
to the show.
Lindsay, and I just
You're like,
kinda-
there's an extra L in there.
I just hand wave it away. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Well, thank you for coming on to the show. I appreciate it. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners that may not be familiar with who you are?
Sure. Let's see. I have been doing web software for, since 2009, 2008. So that's a long time. It's almost 20 years. I've been doing open source for the last 10 years. Like actually contributing to open source and building open source packages. And that's probably where people will come to know things that I've built.
Yeah.
So obviously I've had startups and companies and things that I've worked on in the past. But a couple years ago, I built React Query. And that's probably where most people have heard of something that I built, is React Query.
Which is now called...
Yeah.
Which is now
TanStack.
not called React Query anymore. It's called TanStack Query. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the adapter is called React Query. Like I didn't want to make everybody incorrect overnight. So I was like, no, you're still right. It's just the React adapter. So
Looking out for people and their egos. I appreciate it.
yeah. So I've been doing that for a while. I went full time on TanStack, open source and TanStack as a business about 2 years ago. And it's been great. I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I will say I use your stack, TanStack, a lot on my client projects, specifically Query. And most recently, I've been getting into Form to kind of get that integrated. And I do love your logo, your new logo, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I like it. It gives me that like laid back vibe.
And the
which I don't know
little
if that's what you were
pirate
going for.
ship peeking out from behind the...
Yeah.
That is exactly what we were going for. I mean, the people like to, they're like, well, what inspired your logo? I mean, really, I was just trying to make sense of a nickname. Like I was given the nickname TanStack by a friend, Sean Wang, or Swix, as people know him online.
Oh, okay. See, you, I wouldn't know who that is until you say the nickname because it's, tech has such a nickname culture, or like a gamer tag kind of.
And we were at React Rally like in 2018, and he kept calling me TanStack, and I was like, okay. It wasn't until I did the SEO and marketing research on what that would look like that I was like, oh, I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Everything after that has been like trying to back my way into the name making sense. So like I was like, TanStack, what? That doesn't mean anything. You know, I was like, well, what if it's like
Tan.
you're getting tan because you're relaxing. You're relaxing so much because of the great software that we're using. And what does that look like? And I'm like, well, it's like a vacation from your problems, you know? So I just like slowly have backed my way into like the brand that it is today. And yeah, like it's not the official tagline, but it's kind of like just relax. Like we'll take care of this for you.
We're not a video podcast, so our listeners can't see this, but behind you have a 2D version of the logo, which looks really cool too. Yeah. I'm looking at the website right now, which has like the 3D version. But yeah, very cool logo.
I'm not super like OCD about the logo being like, oh, it's got to be the same everywhere. It's like, I mean, I want people to use the new version of it. But I mean, I'm pretty fast and loose with AI these days, and I'm okay with that. A lot of my maintainers are too. So like whenever we make an announcement blog post or something, like we'll just AI gen something having to do with the beach or, you know, palm trees or like the pirate ship thing. And what's funny is it's almost like becoming like a Tide commercial where like if it has to do with the beach or palm trees or the ocean or something, people are like, oh, is that TanStack?
Oh, TanStack. Like, you're like, yes.
Yeah, like I went to In-N-Out Burger the other day and my kids are like, Dad, look, TanStack. Because there's palm trees everywhere. Oh my gosh,
you're getting the brand recognition even when it's not your brand.
I know. That's awesome. Like, okay, cool. I like it.
That's amazing.
I want to bring up something we talked about in the beginning, kind of before we started recording. What was your first mobile app? If you can give us a quick tour of that.
My first and only mobile app.
First and only.
Really? I mean, I'll probably build some more soon, hopefully. But my first
this
app,
one was probably not React Native, so that checks out.
No, go ahead. It wasn't. This is the app that got me into front end, believe it or not. Because, let's see, I'm 36. I was born in 1990. And
Yes, 1990 represent.
As a 1990-er, like
that's a good year.
I feel like when I was in high school, in junior high, like with the iPhone coming out and just kind of like ruling my junior high and high school years, it's like everybody wanted an iPhone. And part of that was like apps. It was part of like the app craze was right when I was in junior high school, like developing my worldviews, right? So I just wanted to build an app and I didn't care how. And when I got into college, I was like, I do not want to learn Objective-C. Everybody's like, you have to learn Objective-C. And I was like, I'm not doing it. That sounds terrible. I knew PHP and I knew a little bit of JavaScript. And then somebody told me about Angular and Ionic. And I was like, what the heck are these? You know, like I had played a little bit with like Backbone and Knockout, and like with friends at school for like little projects. And then Angular came on the scene and just destroyed everything. And Ionic was like the gateway drug for me. I was like, oh my gosh, you mean I can just build this in JavaScript and HTML and CSS and then ship it to like a web app? So I spent a long time building this app. And the premise for the app is, my brothers made a company called Moab Ready. And I've already talked about Moab, Jeeping. We were very into it.
Which is funny because we have a couple people at Infinite Red from Utah, but we like basically consider them in different states because some of them are in like Provo, Salt Lake City. And then this other guy's in Moab, which is like basically a different state.
It's like Red Rock. Yeah. You know, it's out of a movie, like all the Red Rock formations.
Right. It's like Mars. Yeah. In some ways.
And they had this company, my brothers did, where they would, you know, sell Jeeping and outdoor stuff for Moab. And I was like, I'm going to build an app for that. And something that I always wanted at the time was like mapping technology was not super fleshed out yet. But you'd always lose service when you go out on these Jeep trails all the time. There's just no service at all. So everybody had all these paper maps in their Jeeps. Not the experienced people, but I mean, who had memorized the trails, but lots of people had maps. I I was like, I'm going to build an offline app with maps, because I discovered that the GPS would still work even when you're offline on your phone. So this was kind of crazy at the time, because I had to go and write my own scripts to scrape. Actually, it was probably illegal or against terms of service or something, but I scraped all of the map tiles from Google specifically for Moab, and all, like, only around the Jeep trails though. So I used GeoJSON to figure out where all the map trails were, and we went and plotted them all out. And then I used the GeoJSON to figure out what map tiles at what zoom levels would be needed to go out like 100 meters from the side of the trail. And I scraped all those tiles. And then I loaded them into Leaflet and built this Ionic app using Leaflet and Angular. It was so dang cool. And at the time I was just poor. Like, I had no money. And I remember like putting all of my money into just buying the stupid developer license to publish this thing. I was like, $100 a year? You've got to be kidding me. But I did it. And
I
we
still
had it
think
on
that when I go to pay it.
I know. We had it on the App Store for like a year or 2 or 3. And then it got out of date, and I started building other things for work. And yeah, React Native came out. I was like, oh man, I'm going to migrate it over to React Native. And I never did. So, and then like,
I bet you could now. It would be fun now, especially with like Claude and like agents and
it
stuff.
really would
to
be
like,
pretty easy to
take
do that
it
now.
And just tell it, hey, take this Ionic app that I made 15 years ago and
I
make
mean,
it
most of the
React
stuff
Native.
wouldn't even work anymore. Some of it might work better. Like, I know Leaflet's come a long way, and I think you could just use some native mapping stuff now with React Native. You wouldn't need to do that. But yeah, it came time to renew that developer license around like year 3 or 4, and I was like,
You're like,
nah,
no, not anymore.
I'm good. So
You're good.
that was the end. The first and last app that I ever built was an Ionic.
That's amazing.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, before we get into our topic,
Our actual
let's hear from
topic, if we are here to talk about TanStack Native Router, if you're wondering.
React Native, not Ionic.
Tanner's just so fun to talk to.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice of you.
Let's hear from our sponsor. InfiniRed is a premier React Native consultancy located fully remote in the US. We're a team of 30 senior plus level React Native developers and support staff, and have been doing this for over a decade. If you're looking for React Native expertise for your next project, hit us up at infinite.red/radio. Don't forget to mention that you heard about us through the React Native Radio podcast.
And the episode. We always love to know like what episode brought you to us.
Yeah. What sparked
Good
it?
data.
Yeah.
We love data.
Data is good. Well, let's get into our topic. TanStack Native Router. Tanner, to kind of kick this off, we reached out to you because you started tweeting that you all you started at TanStack doing this native router for React Native.
I have to say that tweet kind of broke our internal Slack a little bit. Everyone was like, what?
Yes.
Really? That's amazing.
Well,
We're very excited.
It's funny because somebody knew about it before I even started working on it.
Was that
I've been talking to Jamin about it for a while. So Jamin's probably like, "Oh yeah, cool."
He's off
Sounds
it.
about
He's been off in his helicopter game, which we
Right.
talked about on the last episode of React Native Radio. We heard from Jamin all about his game, so that's probably where his brain was.
Yeah, and I've been there too. I built my little pirate ship game like a month or 2 ago. If you don't know what that is, I mean, if you go to tanstack.com and wait for the little pirate ship to peek out from behind
Yep.
the island, if you click on
Is it a game?
It's a little Easter egg.
Wait.
Robin.
No.
Here we go. We lost Robin.
You use your keyboard for sure.
Oh
it's
my
keyboard and
gosh.
space.
All
Mobile
right.
controls
You
are
guys can
still
continue
in the
the
works.
podcast. I will just be playing this game.
It is a lot of fun. Don't get hooked.
So it's funny. Our CEO Todd, who was also on the podcast a couple episodes ago, did something similar. Like used AI to help him create a game that had been in his head for years, and I'm seeing that so often. Of just like like the new level of AI that we have is sort of like unlocking all of this creativity that's just been like kind of like stagnant because you know we didn't have the time or the money or whatever it would take to make it come to life, and now it is. So that's been really fun to see. Little AI side tangent.
Yeah, I vibe coded the whole thing, and it uses 3JS, and I really pushed it. Like this was back on 4.5, so I did not use Opus 4.6 on this, but I was running out of context window like crazy. And at one point I was like, it still looks crappy. Like make it look better, make no mistakes. And it like went way overboard and like crashed my browser and stuff. I was like, okay, back it off a little bit.
All right. So now you all have know about the Easter egg.
It's a game you can play
TanStack
while
website.
you're listening to us talk about,
That's a great
about
point.
this, right? That's a great way of putting it.
So yeah, Jamin knew about it, about TanStack Native Router. I've always wanted to build it, especially because, so everything we do at TanStack's agnostic. It's like, we don't like to lock into anything. Not even React. Really the only thing we lock into is like TypeScript, and that's it. So all of the core engines for all of our libraries are just TypeScript, essentially. And we've built like a really intricate toolkit around building adapters for different frameworks. But React Native is special because it's not just another web framework. It goes a lot deeper than that. And so it always scared me a little bit. And I also know that like the React router folk have gone down the native navigation story. And then they chose to like kind of say, no, we're not doing that anymore. So they're like, because of that story, I was like, well, there's probably a lot of things that like, you don't know what you don't know. Right. But then again, I was like, well, let's go find out what I don't know.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're setting this context because you all at TanStack have TanStack Router, which is for web. So now this is a different piece, right? Like now you went down the exploration of web, you solved it within your stack. Now you're like, let's investigate mobile.
Yeah. And we did the web way in a way that like we can build. It works for React. It works for Solid. But
it doesn't work for React Native because native is native, right?
Yeah, and because I mean, the React Native ecosystem for me, it's really deep.
It is.
But breadth wise pales in comparison to how many people are in web. So it's actually easy to find people who are like, oh yeah, I'll help you with the Solid version, or we can give you expertise and help on like the Vue and the Angular side. But nobody, I never found anybody that was like, hey, I know routing in React Native really, really well, and I will help you. You know, like those people are the React navigation people.
Right. And so they have their own, they're like, I'm not going to help you build a competing router.
Or it's like Evan Bacon is the only other person. And I know Evan, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about doing like a native router. And Evan's like, oh, good luck. You know, like he knows. And he's just like saying a prayer for me. Like, he's like, yeah, like show me your scars. I'll show you my scars if you show me yours, you know? And so I've been talking about it for a while, but I never found anybody. But AI is really what unlocked that. I was like, oh man, I can come in and just explore everything that I don't know and get a feel for like really quickly where are the thorns in this bush? So, I sicked AI on it probably 4 months ago now, just to get a feel for what was there. And I was like, oh crap, like there's a lot missing here from what I was expecting from the web. And that's because I came into it with the premise of, I'm like, we can't use React navigation. We're not going to use React navigation. We can't rely on Expo Router. Like we were trying to replace those, like compete with those. But there is a missing piece here. And what's funny is really easy to get something working that felt like the web, but nobody wants that on native. That's the entire point. Is like, if it feels like the web, everybody's like, this feels fake and terrible. Like that's so much about what native is. It's just the feel. And so when I was like, hey, look, everybody, like you can run TanStack Router in React Native. When you click a link, it just like hard navigates. And people are like, okay. well, what about animations? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, okay, well, what about like navbar and navbar stuff and footer stuff and tabs? And I was like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
And then they were like, what about swipe to go back? Because if you don't support swipe to go back, I'm never touching this. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
and I put it on my own phone, and I was like, you're right. Like, without swipe to go back and this stuff, I was like, it doesn't feel native. And it's like, okay, we're back to Ionic land.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I've stopped using apps because they don't have swipe to go back. There's like one app that I use that doesn't have it, but it's on specific screens.
Or it doesn't work well.
Yeah. Like my you all know I'm a big sports guy. I have an app called Live Score. It's I believe it's not an American app, but regardless, there are specific screens where you can't swipe to go back. You have to like swipe down to get to a screen that you can swipe to go back. And I still swipe to go back a lot. Like on those screens, I'm like, oh wait, no. And then I swipe down. I've used other apps where I'm stuck in that state and I'm just like, I'm done with this app. Like it's not working. Tanner, I want to kind of go a little bit deeper, but take a step back, however you want to look at it. With TanStack Native Router, are you or is the goal, or is it implemented where you go directly to the native side, so aka Swift or Kotlin, or are you planning on sitting on top of something like React Native Screens, which React Navigation and Explorer currently sit on top of?
I'm sitting on top of React Native Screens for sure.
Okay.
I don't plan on going deeper than that. The RN Screens maintainers have reached out. Actually, they're like, hey, we saw this, like, very cool. Like, by the way, we're working on some new things and we want to make you aware of them. And I was like, okay, nothing you're going to do is going to change my approach, but they're just going to keep getting better at what they're doing. Right.
I think we had them actually on the show a couple months ago. And I feel like they meant like, did they talk about that they were working with you? Do you remember, Mazen?
They did not. No, okay. I was on that episode. It was the software mentioned.
Yeah. But we talked to them a lot about this and like how they work with
working
like you who are building a library on top.
I mean, I wouldn't say working with is like a pretty strong statement. We are aware, and they're like, hey, heads up, we're making some changes around this or that. And I'm like, cool. But other than that, I love React Native Screens. I think is the right abstraction for me. And so when I needed swipe to go back, and I needed title, like header management, title, back button, native stuff, React Native Screens is really nice. So that's essentially what TanStack Native Router is becoming, is just this layer on top of driving React Native Screens, which if you've ever tried to use React Native Screens like primitively, it can be a lot to manage, right? So when we talk about the adapter, between TanStack Router core and native, that's exactly what I'm building, is this layer that is translating, the agnostic routing strategy of TanStack Router into something that React Native Screens can not just use, but there's also some like meta properties and specific things that we add in just for React Native, to manage things like the header and title, back button, specialized slots and content around React Native. And there's even more around the life cycle of React Native Screens because it behaves like a stack instead of your typical like browser history or even memory history archetype, I guess. There's really interesting things you can do with a stack that you don't see a lot of in the web. And I'm actually excited to explore that more, and we can talk about that more.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It is a different like technical challenge, and you can be creative in different ways, which is fun. Quick pause. My son is like yelling "mom" over and over again. So
yeah, go for it.
I need to go figure out what he needs.
I'm gonna go tend to my agents.
That's what we're all doing these days.
I know, right? I'm building a new like landing widget for tanstack.com right on the homepage.
Oh, nice.
And instead of like being like a chat, like, oh, build with us, it's that same vibe. So it's like, hey, what do you want to build? Here's an input box. And then you go to click generate, and instead of generating an app, it generates the prompt to help you get started somewhere else.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's kind of like meta chat experience.
Yeah.
So obviously most of the React Native world has been using React Navigation and or Expo Router almost exclusively. I don't really know of a ton of other solutions that people are using.
Remember React Native Router Flux?
That was like the original, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what we were using when I first got into React Native, but I haven't heard of
Same.
anyone using that recently.
I hope it's still around. I feel
Maybe.
Yeah. You know, I always have like a soft spot for the first technology.
It's true.
Like
It's
PHP
true.
for me.
I still remember doing an old client came back to us needing a React Native upgrade, and so I was like jumping back into Router Flux and like old school
I
Redux.
digress.
Anyway, but one of the things that people like criticize React Navigation for is complexity, like nested navigators, like this huge hierarchy of complexity. And like all the TanStack tools are like, people love them because they're like simple, they're easy to use, like they're familiar. Are you going to try and sort of simplify the mental model that comes with navigation?
Yeah, we are. I think, React Navigation is like a powerhouse of
It is.
custom possibility. The fact that you can like nest stacks and navigators and you can go really, really deep. And I think that's where the complexity creeps in.
Well, yeah, it's like it didn't happen overnight, right? They didn't sit down and build React Navigation with the API that it has right now. They're like, okay, this is everything we're going to need. No, it started out probably a lot simpler, and then over the years of people using it,
I also think native apps in general, even before React Native apps in general, just like they tend to have some weird like navigation habits.
Yeah. Or like all it takes is one feature with a weird requirement. You're like, okay, so we need to open this modal, but then when the user dismisses the modal, we need to go back to this other screen that we were on before so that it completes the like some apps can, like, depending on what the product needs are, can have some really bizarre navigation needs. And
there's like you hit the back button and you're like, I actually don't want to go back. I just want to go back to the latest screen that I had of this modal that I had. It gets really specific. And the way that I'm approaching it is I don't want to tell everybody who has an advanced use case just kind of like, sorry,
you're
SOL.
SOL,
You can't use this product. So what I've been trying to do, and this is why I've been talking to Jamin and a bunch of people who build native apps, and I'm just trying to figure out like what is the 90%? What are the use cases that just cannot be ignored?
Mm-hmm.
And like one of them that I resent, I really don't like, is like tabs, the tab navigation, where you've got the 3 or 4 tabs at the bottom of the screen. You tap on one, and really what you're doing when you go between those tabs is it really is like using a separate browser tab.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of those tabs has its own like little navigation stack. And that just, it's even just that little bump in use case just explodes the complexity.
Yep.
Because on the web, we just let browsers handle that, right? Like, oh, you need a new tab, you make a new tab. And then we just operate within the constraint of like, yes, we're on one browser window.
Well, and a browser tab is agnostic to what you're doing in it. Like, whereas like the tab in your app, it's like, no, this is the profile tab, and it is like has a specific hierarchy. You can only do very specific things with it.
Right. So there's some like concessions to be made there, I think. I want to support that for sure. I want people to be able to have separate tabs. But when you get into having like completely separate stacks of navigation, I'm pretty sure that I don't want to go down the route where it's like, oh yeah, you now have multiple history stacks.
Right.
In the concept of TanStack
or like
router.
three
I don't
different
want
copies of the same screen because like you didn't know that you were going to have to link to the profile screen from the schedule, whatever, which has happened.
Right.
That literally, I'm pretty sure that exact scenario has happened.
Right.
And we're like, actually, we can't link into that because it's not in this stack.
Exactly. And I think there probably are outliers and use cases where you're like, you know what, we do need separate history stacks. I mean, if you were to build a browser inside of an app, you would need this concept anyway of like being able to have separate tabs, or like a dashboarding system where it's like, okay, each dashboard, maybe you are spinning up a new instance of TanStack Router in each of those tabs. That I would even be okay with. And then, moving between those would be up to you to figure out how to do that. But I don't really want to go down that route because I think that's where React navigation is both really strong, and if that's what you need, then by all means go use React navigation, because I don't really want to own that use case, if that makes sense. I would rather look at it and say, okay, as long as you're okay with your application working like a browser history where you have forward and back, and you still have the stack, like you can render multiple versions of your history on a stack, and you can swipe to go back, and you can go all the way, you can push on as many versions of a screen as you want. And I already have a feature in there where you can say, hey, go back to this, the topmost version of this screen in the stack, and it will just kind of pluck off all of the like a bunch of them at the same time. So there's definitely operations like that React navigation and Expo Router have made available that are really handy, because navigating on mobile is very different. You can only see one thing at a time, and we get into like layering modals and kind of layering new pages on top of each other. I want to embrace all that, but the whole like multiple router thing, multiple stack concept, I'm going to stay away from that as much as I can.
I like that. I think the concept of stacks and like the mental model we have of stacks, I don't really know the origins and whether it's sort of based in the native APIs or not, or whether it's sort of the abstraction that React navigation came up with 8 years ago. And that's kind of where we all are stuck. But like I see Expo Router come in and have the desire to make things more web-like in terms of like storing data.
File-based routing.
Right. File-based routing, like storing data and other kinds of state within URLs, and sort of like being able to route via actual links and things like that. I saw the desire to become more web-like, and yet Expo Router is still fundamentally uses like stacks and sort of the React navigation model, because it's built like it's a wrapper around React navigation. So it's still using those concepts. Your goal is basically to still try and bring in the things about routing that we love from the web, but without trying to sort of continue the concept of stacks under the hood. It sounds like that's kind of where you're going with it.
Really what it is stack, just one.
Right?
Just one. That's the concept. And if you can just constrain to that, you are already in web territory, like the developer experience of web.
Right. Single stack, single history, back and forward.
It is 10 stack, not 10 stacks.
True.
Right.
Checks out.
True.
And what's interesting, I think, is that we don't want to have a different API between all of the different adapters. Like we want using TanStack Router between all these different frameworks and even React Native to feel the same for all the core principles of links and programmatic navigation, URLs. Like that's another thing too that I've talked with people. And I mean, Expo Router is a huge improvement on top of React navigation.
Mhm.
I've used Expo Router for some fun little, on computer demos. I have not built more apps, but I've like tried it out plenty of times. It's very exciting technology, and it looks so dang good. And the router is honestly better than a lot of the things that we've had on the web too. Like I think it's definitely better than what people are experiencing with Next.js, in my opinion. But even so, we've spent a really long time on type safety, and also storing state in the URL. Expo does a lot of that. Like it has way better type safety than everything else out there, and it has better URL state storage than a lot of other things out there. But what we have in TanStack Router, I think, is still goes a bit further on the type safety front and the URL state front. And we're able to provide that same experience across all the different adapters that we have. So the idea that we could bring somebody into React Native and be like, if you know how to use TanStack Router on the web or anywhere else, you're going to be able to build an app really easily. And yeah, there's a few more concepts that surface. Like we're trying to hide React navigation as much as we can, but there are a couple of things that come up. Like managing the stack is different because on the browser, typically, I mean, who's to say about the future, right? I have ideas, but typically in the browser, you don't render, multiple entries from the history on the screen at one time,
Right.
But on native, you do, even if it's for that split second where you're swiping to go back.
Right. You need to be able to see
visible.
it underneath. Yeah.
Or you have a modal that kind of pops up, whether that's part of the stack or not. You kind of have these two things that need to be rendered at the same time. There's also a lot of overlap there with parallel routes, which parallel routing is, so for those listening who don't know what parallel routes are, typically when you use a router, you're taking a URL or some kind of state and you're mapping it to one line of your routing tree, right? You kind of say, okay, we're going down through this part of the tree and selecting our nested routes. This is the location that we arrived at, and you render that one thing. Parallel routing is like being able to draw multiple lines down that route hierarchy and render them at the same time. And this is a little easier to visualize on the web because generally we have a bigger browser screen and it makes a little more sense. But say you have a drawer, or I guess on iPad, right? Say you have a drawer that comes in from the side and that drawer is a route. And it has its own nested routes inside of that drawer. And the main panel and the drawer can kind of navigate independently, but they're on the same screen. They exist together. And this is important because routes are how we have been organizing so many important things. It's how we organize. It's taken over our file structure. It's organization for just like features and thoughts and organization in general. But
like
also
your Notion has routes, like everything has routes.
There's also these life cycles that we've attached to routes because they're so convenient. So data loading and routing are just like getting even closer together. Search parameter and state management with routing, even more so. And really just anything hierarchical. We talk about React context, pass context through a tree. I mean, that's what a routing tree is. It's a tree. You can pass context through routes too, which is a really cool feature of TanStack Router in general. So, parallel routing brings that power in multiples. So you could have multiple parts of your route tree rendered at the same time. They can all preload together, fetch content together, SSR together, which is more important for the web, I realize. But it also allows you to organize things much better. So in React Native land, you guys have been able to do this for a while, and everybody's jealous because in React Native, you say you have a bunch of modals that could pop up inside of your application. On the browser, generally people will just use search parameters to try and say, hey, show this modal, right? But if you want to do this in a type-safe way, how do you define which modals can pop up from which screens? Are those modals truly available on every single route that you're on? It starts to become a multiplication problem where every single route can show every single modal, which permutes into this explosion of madness.
That's a big number.
And how do you represent that in the URL in a safe
Yeah.
way? Whereas with nested navigation, like the whole nested stacks thing, at least for native, has been helpful because parallel routing is kind of built into that concept a little bit. And where you can say, hey, you know what, here's all of my modals for this part of my app. And if I'm in this part of the app, there's more modals that I can show, but they can be rendered separately. You know, they're kind of their own stack, at least the ways that I've seen a lot of people manage them in React Native. So we haven't really had that in the browser. Or at least not well organized. I've built a couple of systems for old startups and projects that I had that use search parameters to show modals, but it was really hard to show history and let those modals navigate on their own. And type safety was an issue because of that permutation explosion. So, you know, there is an effort outside of even TanStack React Native Router to bring parallel routing to TanStack Router. Not just because we need that to represent some of the very normal things that people in React Native have been used to, but because the web needs proper parallel routing. And if you want to understand the state of parallel routing right now, go find a Next.js demo that claims to have parallel routing, and you'll load it up, and they'll be like, "Oh, look, here's another like slot." They call it like slots, right? And I think they use the ampersand to show you it's going to render in somewhere else, and it all works through file-based routing. Like you actually create files with ampersand slot dot or whatever, and you'll go and you'll use that, and you'll be like, "Oh, navigate this slot to this route," and it'll feel really cool while you're using it. But if you look up at the URL, nothing happens when you're navigating those slots. And if you refresh the page,
Yeah. Right. So it's broken like the fundamental law.
yeah, so
of the
what is a
web.
parallel route?
Yeah.
Really, it's not a route at all. It's just an in-memory
Yeah.
thing that's attached to your routing that you can kind of manipulate with file-based routing, but it doesn't save to the URL. When you refresh the screen, it's gone. They're really difficult to organize. It complicates type safety. So they're this concept that we've toyed around with a little bit on the web, and in the native world, they've just kind of been around forever. So I'm trying to bring that to the web, and I have this huge RFC written up on how it's going to work. We haven't even started really working on it yet because it's going to be this cross cutting concern through the entire router. It's going to be a lot of fun, and AI hopefully will make it easier. But that's part of what needs to happen, I think, for TanStack React Native Router to go 1.0 is like we need parallel route support. That said, there's a good percentage of applications that you could build in React Native that don't need that.
Yeah.
And as long as you can do swipe to go back, it would work. And to be honest, swipe to go back is a bit of parallel routing anyway. You're rendering two routes at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
It may only be for a split second, but you're still doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
So right now, as of 2 months ago, I could not figure out how to do it without going full parallel route, like without doing parallel routes for real with TanStack Router, the core. I couldn't figure out how to get swipe to go back to work. And then I was like, wait, I wonder if Opus could hack through this, like even just to demonstrate that it's possible. And somehow, like I still need to go and fully understand the implementation. It's using caching, like it's caching the history entries, and it's caching the state, because the problem with parallel routing is that the state management inside of the router thinks that there's only one route rendered at a time. And we have the concept of the next route that's being rendered pending, like a pending transition state, but we don't have anything in history. Like we don't know what was before that. And we can't push that state down to the component tree. Well, Opus figured out a way to hack around that and started caching the entries for me, and I got swiped to go back to work. And once I figured that out, I kind of went off the rails on like what I was trying to do. So, you guys know, actually, speaking of games, you know what like object culling is in like video games?
No, I
not
don't.
specifically.
Where like if it's like not in your field of vision or it's too far away, the entities get culled or they just they don't render.
Yeah.
And so in games, that's what they call it. On the web, we call it virtualization.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
Like viewport virtualization.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Or if you're the React Router guys, you sometimes call it fog of war. Like there's all these different. Everybody talks about it in this different way. It's basically just like incrementally and only rendering what you see.
What you see on it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's like the problem with getting performant lists.
Right.
Flash lists.
That's why we have flash lists and stuff that are virtualized lists.
I mean, this almost goes all the way back to like id Software and Doom and like ray tracing to only render what they see. Like, how did he get the performance that he did out of those old games? And it's because he was like ray tracing what was visible. So it's not very different. And I thought of that and I was like, what would happen if we could do that with the browser or with the stack inside of this React Native adapter? Because one problem I had heard about and that Jamin had told me about was if you start pushing on a bunch of stacks or pushing on a bunch of entries into a stack, eventually it just gets really big. And sometimes you have to tell those to not render or like they just get, eventually there's like a limit and it can just get like cut off.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing a browser history, and I'm not totally positive on what those limits are for React Navigation or Expo Router, and they might have some of these features, so maybe I'm just discovering my own version of what they've already built, but I feel like it feels novel to me, where I made it so that the stack is virtualized with a couple of rules. And obviously the first rule is that the top entry in the stack is always rendered and always active.
Yeah.
Duh. And I also made it so, and then I made it so that the second and third entries in the stack are also always rendered, but they are by default behind the activity flag from React, the new version of React 19. So they're rendered, but they do not have side effects. They're just there to be rendered. And then everything behind that, like from 4 plus on the stack index, is just a URL. Like it's not rendered at all, but we have
just stores
the
it as
URL
its route.
state. And that's why the URL state routing is so important, because it's like you don't know if and when, like one of these entries is just going to be kind of like deactivated or garbage collected.
That's so cool.
And you need to be able to bring that back. So as you pop off of the stack, those URL entries that are not rendered come into this virtualization window and all of a sudden get rendered. And then if they get up to the second, I mean, this is the fun part, is you can configure your defaults. So I configured one where the second entry was always active as well with side effects and everything. So if you had a React use effect or timers or whatever happening in that second stack, they would always be rendering. I was like, okay, that's cool. That's a deterministic way of looking at it. Of like, here are my rules for kind of the default stack behavior.
As someone who uses like the TanStack ecosystem, and I love the developer experience and the type safety that you have, like this is one that I can't wait for it to be like,
I know, I'm really
released to try it.
I'm really excited to try it.
Like I want to like give it a go.
Do you have like beta? Like what's?
No, I mean, this is all just in this. It's actually in a branch on TanStack Router. If you go to, so you can actually go and pull it down and clone it and run the examples. You can definitely do that.
Okay, cool.
That was going to be my question. Like, where can people?
Yeah, because if there's people that want to follow along or like help or
Yeah.
try it or like give feedback or whatever.
Yeah, if you go to GitHub, I'm just going to make sure that
We'll
this is.
include this in the show notes also.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to make sure that I'm telling the truth. So github.com/tanstack/router, there is a branch called feet/React Native. So it's behind main a ways. I haven't kept it up to date to main, but I mean, it's nothing in the core, so we should be able to keep it up to date, no problem. But I have added quite a few things. So there is it's a mono repo. There's a new package in here called React Native Router. That's where you would probably want to go through all of the adapter layer if you are interested in how it's built. you'll find things in there like all of the hooks for like use match, use matches, use params, use router, use search. There are like lower level things like there's catch boundary component. There's the match and matches component, which is where a lot of like the React Native screens translation area happens. Like how do we take the matches from the router and apply them to React Native screens? There's a lot of fun stuff in there. But the other piece that's important too is there is an examples directory. And in there's a React Native /basic. And it's the only example I have so far. And let's see, what's in this route? So there is an index route, an about route, a post route, a posts index route. And then I have like these deep posts and deep post depth routes where like that's where you can just kind of push on as many versions of those routes as you want into the history and kind of play with the stack virtualization, which is really fun. We call it stack state. And the stack states are active, paused, and detached. And we don't use the React or React Native or even React specific anything words for these because we plan on bringing this concept to the web as well. So you could choose. So the web's default would actually be only render the topmost entry.
Right.
That's how the web works.
Right. You don't need to have the.
Yeah. But if you wanted to turn this on, you could go in and turn on what are the default stack depth configurations. So for the web, you could say, hey, actually, I want you to render the screen behind us, but render it in an activity that's hidden. So hitting the back button would literally be instant. And then we also plan on doing kind of some preloading stuff. So if you preload a route, we might have that work in the stack as well. So they'd be like, we might go here entries in the stack, which is kind of weird to think about. And we would probably render those with activity so that they're like orphaned future entries in the stack. And if you click on one of them, it just gets popped in. It's already there. The other fun one that I started playing with was the ability to manipulate the stack per navigation. So if you are on a screen and you're like, oh, we're doing some background task or something on this screen, we no longer want this screen to get detached or become inactive. You can mark it with a state to say like minimum stack state active. And then no matter how far back in the stack it gets, it will always be rendered. So you know that the state for that will always stick around. And you can do that when you navigate too. So when you click a link, you can just add to the link tag in JSX. You could just say min stack state active. And when you click that link, it will just guarantee that next page is always going to stick around.
I love that you're bringing, like, you're not only like bringing TanStack Router to native, you're bringing stuff, like, as you figure all this out, you're going to bring stuff back to web.
Yeah, like there's plenty to hoist back out to the web.
And then I'm sure when you're looking to build a iOS, Android, and web app, this will be very seamless.
A really seamless
work across the board. Yeah, using this one ecosystem.
Well, what's funny is we could technically build swipe to go back for the web.
But
if we wanted.
Take your mouth. Or because a lot of people are accessing the web through touchscreen devices like these days.
Well, iPad, and even just if you have an Apple trackpad.
I'm a weirdo who likes to use the web versions of stuff even on my phone because it reduces the dopamine addiction a little bit.
PWAs for the win.
But like, I would love it if like Instagram web would let me like swipe to go back.
Yeah, a lot of the browsers on mobile, like they have swipe to go back built into the browser, but it's trash, right?
Yeah, it's not. It's not good.
They're not keeping the last page around all the time, and I think Safari is actually pretty smooth. But other than that,
Safari is decent. It's decent, but it's not like.
Or they'll take a screenshot, and then when you swipe to go back, you see the screenshot, and it's like, but then it turns gray, and then it's got to reload the page, and then it flashes again. And it's like, what the heck? So yeah, we could definitely bring that back to the web. It would be a lot of fun. And yeah, the idea is that you should just be able to write an app one way. And I honestly don't think that's how things are going to end up. People still want things to look different on native. I don't think that's the point. I don't think it's write once, deploy everywhere. I think it's just learn once, deploy everywhere. And that's something like that Expo has done a pretty good job at doing. Like, I know that they have a web side of it, and some people have used Expo to build kind of web stuff. But yeah, I would just really not have to ditch TanStack Router going into native. And that's really what ultimately pressured me into doing this anyway, is I had enough people come to me from the native community that were like, hey, did you know I use TanStack Router on the web? And then when I go back to React Native, don't get me wrong, they love Expo. That's the thing, is everyone loves Expo. So do I, but not so much Expo Router from some people that I've talked to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, you still have it better than a lot of other people using other routers. They're like, I know, but they just want to carry the tools they love with them everywhere they go. And TanStack Router is, I think we've built a pretty lovable tool.
I am so excited to try it. And I wish we could talk to you about it for the whole day.
Many
hours.
But
our listeners are probably... they're probably like, this was a long episode, but it was a good one.
I think one of the last things on this topic, I think, would be like a little bit of a call to arms. And a little admission of humility here. Like, I don't know React Native.
Yeah.
I don't know Expo very well. I am not from this world. I'm pretending that I know what I'm doing, and AI makes it really easy to do that. And so there's other things that we need to figure out, like title and header management and back management.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how can we still use Expo, but not use Expo Router, which I think should be possible. And then we get into some even deeper stuff where it's like, well, right now, if you go use the example that I just told you about on GitHub, we're packaging it with Expo, which is really cool. But people love TanStack Start as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's the server function side of it, like the full stack. I mean, it's not the same end result as something like the web, but the tools are very useful in the same way. You've got RPCs, you've got pre-rendering to some extent, and people are naturally going to want TanStack Start. And I don't know what that means. Does that mean that we have to like drop down to Metro? Is there something that we can do with Vite? Does TanStack Start need to support Metro too? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of like big questions, and these are the questions where people are like, is TanStack Router for native going to launch soon? And I'm like, no. Look at these big questions that I have. They're all answerable, but I'm going to need help from the native community. So
it's still very much a project. And we're not talking about a product with an imminent release. We're talking about a cool idea that you're actively working on and would love.
Alpha. Like, we're talking about getting to an alpha state,
right.
I mean, what I have today, we could launch as an alpha and people would be like, oh, wow, neat. And there'd be some really brave souls who are like, I'm going to ship with this, man. and I'd say good for you.
So yeah, the people for our audience, go pull it down, try it out, like build something with it, and maybe like talk to Tanner about what you found out and what would feel good or what would feel better.
Yeah, if you know a lot about the things that I just said, then yeah, we would love to talk to you.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, Tanner, as always, thank you so much for coming on. This has been very insightful. Just even talking about navigation in general, I really appreciated it. And yeah, that's it for our listeners. Like we said, reach out to Tanner, give it a go.
We put the links in the show notes.
Perfect.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll see you all next time.
All right, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
As always, thanks to our editor, Todd Worth, our assistant editor, Jed Bartosky, our marketing and episode release coordinator, Justin Husky,
and our guest coordinator, Mazen Chami. Our producers and hosts are Jamin Holmgren, Robin Hines, and Mazen Chami. Thanks to our sponsor, Infinite Red. Check us out at infinite.red/radio. A special thanks to all of you listening today. Make sure to subscribe to React Native Radio on all the major podcasting platforms.